You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi guys, it's me again, Mighty Blue or Steve Adams, and you are listening once more to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis, sponsored by Triple Crown Coffee. After last week's epic at an hour and 3/4, we're back to a much more manageable show. Our main guest is Amber Heuisler, or Wheezy. Now, Wheezy isn't any ordinary hiker. She wrote a post in Facebook, and as soon as I read it, I knew that I wanted to hear from her. She's an inspiring young woman, and Amber will be along shortly. After Amber, I'll be catching up with Bounce once more, and you'll probably recall Bounce has had a tough few weeks, so it was great to hear him sounding so positive this week. Exactly why that is, you're going to hear after Amber. Then, having introduced his characters last week, Keith Foskett explains why he's on the trail and the various adventures and life choices that led him there. Keith will be on after Bounce. But before all that, we've got this. When I used to get up in the morning on the Appalachian Trail, I would have sacrificed my firstborn for a good cup of coffee. Instant was a bit, blah, but how much more satisfying it would have been to have had some backcountry beanbags from Triple Crown Coffee. They do a light, medium and dark roast. In fact, you can get a mixed six-pack of their 3 flavours, named, not surprisingly, after the 3 trails in the Triple Crown, the AT, the PCT and the CDT. I love the backcountry beanbags because they are perfect for your favourite 2-cup stove, and they make a proper 16-ounce cup of joe. Alternatively, you can cold soak them overnight and try it that way. Check them out at triplecrowncoffee.com. You won't be disappointed, and you'll never want to drink instant coffee again. It's been really great having Chris Perello's Triple Crown Coffee supporting the show these past weeks. He's a Triple Crowner himself. He makes great coffee, and he gives back to the trail. Thanks, Chris, and to those of you who have written to me to tell me how much you've enjoyed trying out his coffee. Cheers. So let's hear from Amber now. Here is Wheezy. I'd like you all to meet a young woman whose post on Facebook touched my heart recently. Her name's Amber. Hi, Amber. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. And I want to read the post to listeners, and then we can chat about it and what you're doing right now. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Well, Amber wrote, I'm always seeing posts about bigger hikers being ashamed of their size or being fat-shamed for hiking because hiking isn't for fat people. But my sweet friends, by the way, I love that phrase, never let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do just because of what you look like. Today, I reached my 200-mile mark on the Appalachian Trail, and I've never felt more proud of myself. Never be ashamed to hike, so get out there and kick some butt. That was amazing. So what made you want to post that? And I should say, by the way, that Amber has received overwhelmingly positive comments for that post.
Yeah, so basically kind of just what the post says. I'm a bigger hiker myself, so I just wanted to encourage people that, it doesn't matter what you look like or what size you are, that like you're just putting one foot in front of the other and you're hiking.
Yeah. And you actually were quite ambitious. I noticed, I think it's only about your 3rd day, you were going to do a 13-mile day. I don't think I did a 13-mile day for about a month. And I couldn't have done either.
Yeah, so when I got on in March, my 3rd day was a 13-mile day. And then when I got back on in Irwin, our 2nd day was a 13-mile day.
Wow. Blimey. So there's something. And I also, because since Amber and I have spoken, I tend to cyberstalk people I'm going to interview. And I watched your vlog from 2019 when you said that you were going to hike the trail and that you intended to lose 80 pounds. Was that an ambition? Was that a necessity at the time? Or, how did that go?
Well, it didn't.
Did you try?
I lost.
Did you try to?
I did try, but things got pretty crazy. And just moving back home from Newport, Rhode Island to Virginia Beach,
Right.
and then immediately going back into work, it became really difficult.
Right.
And I didn't lose as much weight as I wanted to. I lost some.
Right.
But I think the 80 pounds was a bit over ambitious for the timeline that I wanted to hike the trail. Had I planned for it maybe like a year or two later, I probably could have done it, but I was just so antsy to get on trails, and I was just like, screw it, I'm just going to go do it, kind of thing.
Quite right too. So when did you first get into hiking then?
So I first got into hiking 3 or 4 years ago. When I was living in Rhode Island, I discovered the White Mountains.
Oh my gosh.
So my very first mountain summit was Mount Shakora in the Whites,
Right.
which is not easy. And then my second was Mount Osceola and then Mount Moosilauke.
Wow.
So I was just kind of like wanting to do like the NH48. And that was kind of my introduction in hiking, and I just fell in love. And it was just so very healing and rewarding for me. And I knew I was just like, I want to do this long term. So
did you get into it because you're a bigger girl, or I mean, what was it? What was the thing that motivated you to get hiking then?
That's a good question. I wanted to know that there was more out there. Like, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to know that there was more than just working 9 to 5, and hiking became my escape from the drones of everyday living.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get out there, and I wanted to see that, like, this world is worth living, this life is worth living, and I wanted to get out there and see all the beauty of that.
But what the whites,
You wanna be able to see.
the whites is a tough way to start, I've got to tell you.
Yeah, I kind of have the thing, I'm like, if I can hike the White Mountains, I can do anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, and how did people respond to you out there while you were on the trail in the Whites? Because, you know, from the tenor of your post, it's almost as if you expected to be body shamed or something. Did people respond in a positive or negative way to you when you were out on the trail?
Most people were pretty ambivalent. They had no opinion really while I was out there.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing then, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
They treated you like a hiker.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I would get a couple of weird looks, but I mean, other than that, it wasn't really, nobody like shamed me for being a bigger hiker while I was in the Whites. I did have, when I started the AT in Georgia, I had a couple comments from actually some, trail maintainers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They were, because I was hiking with these two other, like, lovely ladies, and I was just kind of like, I'm kind of slow and steady. I like to mosey on up a mountain. And so I just kind of came up behind the two girls because they were stopping and chatting with them, and they just, I can't really remember exactly what they said. They said something along the lines of, oh man, I put it so far in the back of my mind.
You know
it made me really mad.
That's a good place for it. That's the best place for it. Yeah, forgetting about it is a really good place. And when you and I spoke previously, you were very open with me, and you're very open actually in your vlog from what I've seen as well. You've told me you've been in therapy, and you've even attempted suicide a couple of times. How were you able to pull back from the brink, and what was it that motivated you to keep on going then?
Like what motivated me to keep living, essentially?
Well, what were you, what was the thing? What did you decide?
Well, I made a promise to myself that I would live, for one, and I don't break my promises.
Good idea.
I was tired of being in that dark place. I was tired of just being there. Because the thing is like the door was open. I wasn't chained down. I just wasn't moving. Like, I was just sitting in darkness.
Right.
When all I had to do was just walk into the light. And I got tired of being blind in the darkness. And I just like, I'm going to move. And so I did.
Good for you. Good for you. And, I'm going to come back to that a little later, actually. You've done hiking in the past. You said you've gone the Whites and so on. But as I understand, you've never gone any significant distance, like a long distance trail. How did you prepare for that as opposed to doing the 48s?
I would go on shakedown hikes. So I live in Virginia Beach, and so I would go out to McAfee's Knob and Dragon Tooth a lot.
Right, nice.
And just kind of do a few days, just kind of bouncing back and forth between those trails. And then I also, some people might not consider this like real preparation, but I worked in a warehouse for 10 hours a day, standing on my feet on concrete.
Right.
And I think that really helped strengthen my legs.
Wow.
And then I was constantly like just walking, just always walking.
Right. Good for you.
Granted, I mean, Virginia Beach, I live below elevation, like below sea level.
Right.
So it's very flat. So I would get out to the mountains as much as I could.
Right. So how far were you from McAfee Knob then?
It's about a 4.5 hour drive.
But so worth it. What a great spot to be near on the trail. That's pretty cool. So you decided that a 2,200-mile hike was the one for you. What was and I love this part actually. What was the significance of your start date at Amicalola Falls?
Well, I wanted to march forth on March 4th. So I did.
So you were marching forth on March the 4th. Very cool. Well, so what were those? Did you enjoy those early miles? Were they difficult for you, or did you find it relatively straightforward? Because, and once again, watching one of your video logs, you said that Blood Mountain, which is the first, in fact, the tallest peak in Georgia, so right at the beginning, I think day 4 or something like that, you thought it was quite easy. So was it just easy compared to the Whites?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of fear mongering that happens around Blood Mountain. Granted, everybody I've talked to during that time, they had a terrible day. It was like rainy, windy, gross. I had a cloudless day, and it was beautiful.
Nice.
And Blood Mountain was really easy. Like, I thought I flew up that mountain. I thought it was great. It was a lot of fun. Coming down into mountain crossings was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's very steep going down.
Yes, it is. I think you're right, though, Amber. Yeah. I've done it twice now, and it was clear first time and rainy second time. I much preferred it clear because coming down the backside of that mountain, some of those rocks are very sheer, aren't they? They're very just slippery, and with rain on them, they're a nightmare. They really are.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's so easy to get off trail. Like, we became mountain goats because the AT turns to the left, and we just kept going down the rock.
Right.
We're like, we haven't seen a white blaze in a while.
Yeah, you can get lost. You can get lost coming down there. You're right as well.
Definitely.
So as I say, I watched a couple of videos on your channel, which, by the way, is called Redeemed Wanderer for listeners. By the way, why did you choose that name, Redeemed Wanderer?
Because I am a wanderer who's been redeemed of my past and my struggles, essentially.
And do you feel that that's what hiking's done for you? It's redeemed you?
Yes.
Cool. That's very cool. So, but that's actually not your trail name, because that would be a long trail name. Your trail name's Wheezy, isn't it?
Yes.
Who gave you that?
I have asthma.
Who gave you that?
So one of the ladies I met on day 1, we had hiked the Sober Creek shelter, and the next day she was like, I was, because I have asthma, and when it's really cold, I kind of when I laugh, I wheeze.
Right.
Kind of thing, and I just had started laughing, and she's like, all right, Wheezy, it's time to go, and it just kind of stuck.
Nice. And I'd imagine some of your other videos are like this as well. When you actually were at the top of Blood Mountain, you kind of turned to the camera and you gave a kind of very emotional talk about what it was like to be out there. How did it feel to be on the trail? Were you excited? Because you looked emotional when you were talking.
Yeah, I'm an emotional person, but it was amazing, or it is amazing, just being on the trail. Like, the only thing you have to worry about doing is just getting up and walking, and it's such just a freeing way of life. There's something just so beautiful about embracing the dirt and grime that comes out here, and then just like all your senses are activated. Like, you can feel like every rock and root. You can smell the rain,
Yes.
and you can smell these terrible smelling garlic flower things on the side of mountains. And it's just like the sore feet and the hurting knees and the sore shoulders just become this constant companion as you just walk all day, every day. And it's such a lovely way of life.
And you embrace the pain in some ways, don't you? I found that I did. I accepted it for. It was almost my ticket to be on the trail was embracing the pain.
Yeah, because you have to. If you don't embrace it, you're just going to be miserable. So you kind of have to embrace it. Because it is a constant. It's a constant thing. It's always there. It's always there. But it's amazing.
And I know that you. And I'm looking back at my notes now. I know that you reached Franklin in 2.5 weeks when COVID was starting to rear its head. What led you?
Yes.
What led you to decide to get off the trail? And where were you when you actually left the trail? Was it at Franklin or was it later on?
It was in Franklin that I decided to leave the trail with my friend Honeydew. There were so many things unknown about COVID, and there's a lot of fear. I mean, people, I'm sure, remember it. And the ATC had just let out a letter asking people to postpone their through hikes to get off trail.
And so were you responding to that letter, or were you responding to how you felt about it yourself?
More so about how I was feeling, because I wanted to do my part. Like, I felt there's this social responsibility to minimize contact and minimize the spread. And so I decided to go home because some of these trail towns don't have the means for a high outbreak case or what have you.
Yeah. And how had the early towns been treating you? Were they welcoming hikers in? Because it was starting to get known by then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Franklin, when we got into Franklin, they had just been canceled, but they're about to have like a huge parade. There's a sign that said like, "Welcome hikers." It was about to be like awesome, but then by the time we got there, everything had shut down. Restaurants weren't open. Literally, we ate McDonald's for like 2 days because that was the only thing that was open.
Oh wow! And so, so you went back home. How disappointing was it for you? And did you think you were going to come back?
I was devastated. My last vlog that I had mentioned that I was going home, I was in a much better emotional state when I recorded than the night before.
Right.
I was heartbroken because this was something that I had been working towards for so long. So I didn't know, because like I said, everything is so unknown. So I didn't know if I was going to be back out or not.
I can imagine. You know, I really feel for the class of 2020. I mean, I'm following a guy on the trail. Have been following a guy on the trail. He's now up in New Hampshire. He's been on since the start, never got off, and so on. And you know, it's you've had a hike unlike anybody else this year. But you went back home for 3 months, and so you came back in, I think, July the 6th. So what was the rationale for coming back then?
I was ready. I wanted to get back out. I had just dropped my friend Honeydew. She actually had gotten on a couple weeks before me, and I took her to the trail in Irwin. And then I was like, I want to come back out now, because I feel like more hikers were starting to come back out on trail. And like, this is the year of like the flip flop, the year of the Phobos. A lot of people are starting their Phobo hikes that I keep seeing. And so I was just like, shoot, might as well just
get back
come
on.
back out while I can. Yeah, why not? And
so you missed it. You missed out from Franklin to Irwin. Will you fill that in sometime?
Yes. So my friend that I'm hiking with, we started in Irwin. We're going to go as far north as we can until basically the weather turns. And then next year we're going to finish what we don't finish this year.
Right. And when you've posted that thing, you were in Hampton, Tennessee. That was your 200-mile mark.
Yeah, that was my 200-mile mark.
And that sense of achievement must have been pretty fantastic for you. I mean, I remember doing my first 100-mile mark and being amazed that it was 100 miles and then really realizing I still had about 2,100 miles to go. I mean, this is a long, long hike, isn't it? It really feels like especially probably feels even longer for you because you had a 3-month interregnum, haven't you? So, you've had that interruption for you.
Yeah, it is such a long hike, but you have to remember to celebrate the little things. And so,
totally.
celebrating mile markers really helps.
I agree.
If you think about 200 miles is a huge feat, for anybody, So
yeah, it really is.
And I've already done another 40 miles in 4 days, so I'm really close to hitting my next 100 miles. And after the first 100 miles, the next 100 miles are just so easy because you're just kind of yes, I can do this kind of thing.
Yeah, they rattle past eventually. It's amazing how they do keep rattling past. And you're now in Damascus as well, I understand.
I am in Damascus right now, yeah.
And so I'm trying to think where you've come from. That's from Irvine, of course it was, yeah. And that's isn't that a lovely hike along that ridge once you get round the Watauga Dam?
Yes, once you pass, worst road walk ever.
Yes.
But once you pass it, I got here in 4 hours. It was 10 miles in 4 hours. I was cruising.
Nice.
They call it the Tennessee Highway because the miles are just so easy, and they really are. It's quite lovely.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful around there anyway. So how different is the atmosphere on the trail now from when you were out there in March? Are you noticing differences?
There aren't really any hikers out here.
Oh, really?
There's not many. There's day hikers and a few weekend hikers and a couple section hikers. But the first couple of days, me and Murph were back on trail. We had the shelters to ourselves.
Wow.
We didn't see anybody for 3 days. Yeah, it's not very busy.
I'm
here.
surprised. I'm surprised. Are there any limitations put upon you as hikers in towns now?
Just basically just wear masks kind of thing.
Sure.
That's really, I haven't felt any limitations. I haven't felt any animosity from the locals from being here. But like I said, there aren't really many hikers out.
So
at least where I am.
So have the ATC reopened the shelters? I know they're open, but I know they weren't meant to be used, and also the privies were bolted shut, I believe. Has that changed?
Well, there aren't any privies here. None of the shelters here have had any privies.
All right.
But I'm actually not, this might sound a bit ignorant of me, but I'm actually not sure what the shelter situation is supposed to be.
Right.
But we've been kind of tenting because the mice and the bug, it's been really buggy. So we've been tenting anyway. But there are a couple nights where it stormed and we stayed in the shelters.
Right. Well, so you've not really met many other people then. Have you? You haven't met any. You wouldn't have met any southbounders. Oh, you may have. No, you wouldn't have met any southbounders other than flip floppers. Now, would you?
I've met one southbounder.
All right.
Just one.
Okay. Cool.
And then when we did the Roan Highlands, met a ton of section hikers and just people out for the day and stuff. So that's when people were using the shelter. The Roan Highlands were when I saw the most people out.
I love it there. I love it there. I think that was a fantastic place.
Beautiful, breathtaking, amazing.
And has the weather been okay for you most of the time? Or is it getting really hot now?
It's been really hot and humid. I think the heat wave must have just came through a couple days ago.
Right.
But it was so humid that we started at 9 a.m. and I was already sweating buckets. But we've been really fortunate. It's only rained on us 3 times.
Nice.
In the past few weeks.
Nice.
So, which kind of makes water sources a little scarce.
Yeah, but I'd imagine. I'm trying to think where some of the tough water sources were. I know that a bit further north in Pennsylvania, it gets quite tricky with the water, but hopefully it'll start raining by the time you get there. So how far do you think you're going to make it now? What's the plan?
The plan is to get to Delaware Water Gap.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So
you'll be happy to get off then. It means you would have finished Pennsylvania.
Yes. Yeah, the plan is to get there and then just kind of play it by ear. But the plan is to head to Delaware again.
Now, I want to take you back to, I think it was one of your videos last year. Talk to us about hiking for the hurting.
Right. So that is pretty much the whole reason why I'm hiking. I'm hiking for those who really struggle with mental illness. Essentially, those who struggle with depression, who struggle, they can't even get out of bed during the day because they're really just having a hard time. The ones who feel like they can't take another step. The ones who, are just hurting essentially. Because I've been there. I've been just clinically depressed. I have PTSD, and I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to just constantly battle with your mind to survive the day. But I also know what it's like to be on the other side. I know what it feels like to be chained, but I know what freedom is like.
Yeah, you remarked that. You said that in one of the videos. You remarked that you're on the other side, and it's great, is what you said. Can you articulate to listeners how your hike has helped you do that, or had you done that before you went hiking?
Kind of both. So I did therapy for quite a few years.
Uh-huh.
And I did exposure therapy and stuff like that. And then hiking has just really, all of it together combined has just really helped. And I'm very a faith person, I'm a Christian. And so I have a lot of faith-based and I rely on God and Jesus and stuff and his strength. And so all of that combined has just really helped healing in my soul. And then just on this hike that I'm doing now, like I said, when you're just hiking for 16 hours a day, your mind wanders, and I'm just discovering just different areas of healing that also needs to take place. I'm not 100% healed, and I probably won't be in this lifetime, and that's okay. But through this hike, I'm really seeing areas of oh, this is another area I need to work on. Oh, here's another area I need to work on, and that's okay. And it's really freeing. I don't know the right word for it, but it's quite nice to just have my eyes open to see where I need to work, what I need to work through, and not be disheartened by that, and not be discouraged that I'm not 100% healed, and just being I've had a lot of trauma and I'm working through it,
right.
And this whole hiking is really helping, kind of thing. So.
Well, I tell you what, I think you're an amazing woman, Amber, and I really admire you. I really think your story is going to be an inspiration to many people out there who may have thought that the AT just wasn't for them. They thought they couldn't do it. People have told them they can't do stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and just telling your story. And what I'd like to ask is that when you do get to Delaware Water Gap, let us catch up with you again and see how things have gone. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely stay in contact.
That's lovely. Well, look, thank you so much, and we'll speak soon.
You.
We'll speak again soon. Okay, you carry on.
Thank you.
Happy trails.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
I love that. She chose to march forth on March the 4th. Fantastic. What a girl, eh? She takes all the positives and is turning her life around by hiking. Funnily enough, I was talking to my brother earlier today, and he was out walking. Since the pandemic started and we've all been confined to home, both my brother Mike and I have been walking a couple of hours each day. It really sets you up for the day, and we've both noticed the beneficial effects. And Amber, with over 200 miles to her belt, is having a similarly transformative experience. And I love that she's allowing herself to share her trials and tribulations that she's dealing with through hiking. And I got an update just 2 days ago. She's at Marion. She had to get off the trail for a while, but she's back on and she's at Marion. I wanted to thank those of you who, once again, have stepped up and donated to our show. I never take it for granted and always welcome that lovely email that tells me that somebody else has stepped up. Fantastic. One other thing I wanted to mention, last week's guest, Lily, produced more diverse mail than I'd had from any guest on the show. By that, I mean that there were emails of support and emails of criticism. I love hearing from you guys. I really do. But these wildly varied responses just talk to some of the problems that we have in listening to and understanding each other's points of view. If somebody wants to come on the show, share your stories and provide a counter narrative, then you know that I'm definitely up for it. Now let's hear from a very laid back but happy Bounce. Well, we're back and we're Bounce. Hey Bounce, how are you?
I'm excellent, Mighty Blue. How are you?
You sound a lot calmer, which is a wonderful thing. And I know that from what I understand, you're in Rangeley. What have you decided to do and how long have you been in Rangeley?
So I've been in Rangeley. I think this is the 5th day.
Right.
I took a job with the Red Onion. I work in the kitchen. I make some pizza dough. I wash all this. I keep the place organized and clean. And I'm also on the side working for the Town's Inn, which is where I stayed when I stayed in the hotel here. And
Right.
I do construction type work with them.
Wow. So your hike has taken on a whole new look to it, obviously. What was the decision and why did you make it and how did you make it?
You know, that's a tough question, but the long and the short is I felt as if I was getting out of control or something was in control, and Katahdin became that I got to make it to this sign. And
Sure.
that was never the original adventure. I was on an adventure to find a place that I want to settle into. Right now I've met a lot of great people in this town, and they are thirsty for someone that has good work ethic and multidisciplinary skill set. So, you know, I'm going to try this for a little while, and I'm not committing to anything with them. I'm here for now. I'm doing what I can do.
It's a great little town, Rangeley. I love it. I remember when I came there, I stayed at the farmhouse with Shane and Stacey. You probably met them, I'm sure, at some stage. And I always said that Shane's going to be the mayor of the town at some stage because he was so into the local community. Are you enjoying being there?
I am. The community is very community centric, and I met a couple people already. There's also another hiker here named Trekker.
Right.
He's been here a month and a half, and he's kind of put in the good work so that they're happy about having a thru hiker stay in town.
Right. So tell us then about the place you're staying. You said it's run by an older guy. Is that right?
So the place I work is the Red Onion, and it's owned by a man that was born in 1932 in Germany.
Wow.
And he escaped over the wall after his guide heard the noise and quit. Like, this guy can fly planes.
Wow.
He went through the Great Depression. He's a mechanical engineer. Just an incredible human being to learn from.
And I'm kind of wondering if being on the show at the moment is a bit of a curse this year, you know, with JR, then Kate, and now you. How you're sounding much more relaxed about your decision, which is a good thing, obviously. Are you comfortable with where you are right now?
I am. I mean, I'm not. It's not as if I stopped. I can still continue hiking. I still have my gear packed.
Right.
I'm making money. I'm not going to be a broke hiker to finish it. When I reach that sign, I'll be able to look back on myself and say, you know, you earned this and you did it your way.
Sure.
And you did it. And when I don't want to look back and see that guy that was, that we talked to 2 weeks ago. I want to look back and see this guy that is confident, courage, ready to rock when I'm ready to rock.
Wow. That is cool. So you mentioned that you'd suspended your hike the other day. Does that mean that you may still well finish a Katahdin in a few months, or you're just not committing yourself one way or the other?
I'm not committing myself one way or the other, but Trekker did the same thing. And, you know, he hiked most of this hike alone also. So we've already committed to each other to finding the time once I'm settled in to get back on the trail. We've already spoken to the hiker hostel here and negotiated pretty good rates on shuttles. So, I mean, the plan, I would like to finish the hike in 2020.
Right.
If I do it in some snow, that won't be a problem.
Right. So what have you taken? I mean, this has been an amazing year, obviously, for all sorts of different reasons. But for you in particular, you know, you've been battling demons as well as having, obviously, the COVID situation that's going on. What have you taken from the hike so far? And do you think this has enhanced your life, or is it opened up a can of worms you didn't want opened up?
No, I would say it is enhanced my life. It gave me the hiking gives me time to think. in real life, things are coming at you and you just have to react. And hiking, I'm going at things. I came at this situation. I get to choose my destination. I get to choose how far I go, what I do. And before, I never felt like I had that control. I was, trying to adjust to how this world is affecting me, almost like a water running down a mountain. I'd rather be more of a lake than a river at this point, if that makes any sense.
That's a great analogy. I love that one. I really do. And it is funny that your mindset does change. And I know listeners have heard this a lot from me, that, it cuts down your options and cuts down your distractions when you're out there. And for that, it's a wonderful mind-opening thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, simplification. My goal was simplification. I had a lot. I reduced it to a very little. Now I can isolate on what do I really need and what do I really want. Not more than need, want. I never thought about what do I want. I always thought about what's the next mission, what's the next duty, how do I achieve. I'm competing with right and left. Hiking let me get rid of all that.
Nice.
At least to a point on the beginnings.
So looking back then, is there a highlight? Or are you still expecting highlights to be made, obviously, in the future? Is there a highlight of your hike so far?
Oh, there's been a few highlights. The Grayson Highlands, I'll go back there. Virginia was amazing to me, having the solidarity of just a few people, yes. No one else. This has been an amazing little journey for me. Rangeley's been a highlight. The Southern Maine. That's why I paused here. It's just amazing. It's wild and it's real. I see moose walking down the street now. Yeah,
you filmed it.
There's a lot of highlights.
You filmed a moose the other day, didn't you? I just realised on YouTube I saw you had a moose on there, didn't you?
Yeah, that was my first one I ever saw in my life.
Oh, really? You hadn't seen one didn't see one last year either? Wow.
No. I seen two males walking downtown here, Rangeley, the other day.
That's amazing. That is freaky. Now, and I didn't know this was going to happen. Obviously, you only contacted me the other day, and we're letting people know now. But you've actually already introduced me to the guy that we're going to follow next, and I'm slightly worried because I feel the show may have put the curse on 3 different people. I'm not sure, but tell us about Mr. President, because I spoke to him the other day. He sounds like such a great guy, and you spent some time with him, didn't you?
I did. Mr. President definitely made an impact on me, and I told him if he ever wants to run for office, I don't care what party he runs for. He's got a street guy that will go out and kiss babies, shake hands, and tell about him. He's working with some others. He's about to finish his Triple Crown this year, so I don't think it'll be the same situation as the rest of us. Yeah. And he's working with other Triple Crowners to, help pave the way for folks that maybe can't afford or wouldn't necessarily feel courage to get into hiking, to erase some of the structural problems that are around hiking. I think he's going to do a lot for people, and his background's in data. So me and him connected about the solution. Maybe I come from a more of a conservative approach. Maybe he comes from a more of a California, San Francisco approach. But we both find that center point that that's the goal. Yeah. How we get there, and I couldn't say enough.
He's a man with a plan, isn't he? He really is. There's so many things he wants to do, and the hiking is part of it, but it's what he's getting out of hiking and what perhaps he can give back to hiking, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he thoroughly impressed me, and I can't, like I said, I'd follow. If he needed a ground guy, I'd go.
Cool. Well, look, I'm glad we spoke to you for a couple of weeks, which has been lovely just to reconnect with you anyway. And I promise you, I'm going to check back in with you anyway, personally, to find out how you are. And if you do get moving again, let's just do updates still. I mean, I'm not going to put you or anybody under any pressure, but I really hope that, if you do decide to do it, you'll share it with us on the show, and we can let listeners know you've either decided to stay where you are or you moved on. So I'll just check in with you every now and then, okay?
Sounds good. I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, man. You sound so much better, and I'm really pleased. All right? Take it easy.
Thank you.
Cheers, then.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you listen back to the past few weeks and my chats with Bounce, you're going to hear the changes in him. Like Amber, he's put himself out there, allowed himself to be vulnerable, and is now in a good place, which he proved just now, and by texting this to me this morning. And by the way, he said that I could share this. He wrote, "When I'm not hiking, I seclude inward through art. My expressions come to you. Maybe you've heard I've suspended my through hike. Insights. I walk to run away, abrasive like water, building momentum along the way. I run from the categories, the boxes, the comfortable places where they want me to stay. I run from the successes, glory and praise I turn away. This year I stopped running. I walk towards Jesus. You won't find me in a church, you'll find me in grimy places, with the hardened faces doing the dirty work. I've stopped in Rangeley. Maine is where I'll be. It's a lovely setting where the winters are extreme. Come for a visit. Stop by the Red Onion. Stay in the Town's Inn. Say hi to the locals. Tell them you know me." I think that this is going to be how he shares the fact that he's suspending his hike and he's staying in Rangeley right now. Whatever he decides, I'm sure we all wish him the very best, and if he does choose to go on, I'll be following him every step of the way and sharing it with you guys. And if we haven't put the curse on people we've followed this year, I'll be introducing you to Mr. President next week. In a few weeks' time, I'm going to record an interview with Sandy Mara, the CEO of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Now, I know that the reaction of some hikers to the responses of the ATC in this COVID crisis have been, on social media, downright hostile and often insulting. But I'd like to make sure that the interview I do with Sandy addresses some of these points, and in a bit of a departure for me, I'd really welcome your input into some of the questions I'll be putting to her. Please keep them concise and respectful. If I get pages of vitriol, then that won't get in the show. But if you have some well-argued points to make, please make them. Send them to steve@hikingradionetwork.com and I'll add them to my thinking on the subject. Cheers. Now it's Keith Foskett's Balancing on Blue, Chapter 2. My reading was going to coincide with the release of the audiobook, but that won't be out till mid-September, so look out for that when it's released. You can still get the book in all other formats on Amazon. I'll put links in the show notes. This week, Keith tells us how he ended up on the AT in that year and introduces us to a few other adventures he had on his way there. I'll see you next week. Chapter 2. The stakes are high. "Sir, would you care for lunch? Can I offer you a menu?" "You have menus?" I replied, scratching my head, perplexed. She smiled and handed me a drinks list. "Yes, sir, we do. An aperitif, perhaps?" "Gin and tonic would be smashing," I said, before glancing at the Atlantic 35,000 feet below. I perused the options: tender beef fillet, Dover sole, roast chicken breast, and other dishes nestled on the marbled paper. She returned with my cutlery cushioned in a navy blue napkin and placed my drink on the table. "The steak, please. Medium. Thank you." Business class was a new world, an oasis in an aluminium tube. I couldn't afford it, but a friend with connections had secured me a discounted ticket. "Request an upgrade when you check in," she said. "They always have spare seats." I peered into the economy section, through the curtains. Like livestock in an overcrowded pen, some prodded their catering choice with puzzled expressions and cramped legs. I made the most of my luxury. I'd find little on the trail. In the spring of 1948, Earl Schaefer, a 29-year-old carpenter, hiked north from Mount Oglethorpe in Georgia, the start of the Appalachian Trail. 124 days later, he became the first person to traverse the route in one attempt, coining the term through hiking. His journey and book, Walking with Spring, have inspired thousands to do the same. A 4-month completion was an admirable time even by today's standards, but they derided Schaefer. His claim was ludicrous, unheard of. Even the Appalachian Trail Conservancy deemed it obviously fraudulent. His feat earned him the name the Crazy One. Compared to equipment now, his was sparse. He carried no shelter or stove, wore simple boots, and used an army rucksack. I wonder if in years to come others will view today's outdoor gear in similar disbelief. Schaefer was born in York, Pennsylvania on November the 8th, 1918. When he was aged 5, his family moved to a farm near Shiloh Village. His mother died when he was a teenager, but he shared her love of poetry and literature. He graduated from high school in 1935 and during the Depression found work on neighbouring farms. In the winter he hunted and trapped for furs before becoming a carpenter. With his close friend and hiking companion, Walter Weinmiller, they planned a through hike of the AT before the outbreak of World War II stalled their plans. Schaefer enlisted in 1941 and served as a radio man in the South Pacific until 1945. Weinmiller was killed in action during a beach landing at Iwo Jima, an island near Japan. Schaefer needed the hike to walk the army out of his system and to mitigate his feelings of sorrow after losing his friends. Construction of the AT finished 11 years before his hike, but owing to labour shortages and other factors caused by the war, many sections suffered neglect. With trail books not in existence, he relied on road maps and a compass. It required sound navigation and bushwhacking was common. In 1965 he thru-hiked again, starting from Mount Katahdin and travelling south to Springer Mountain, which had superseded Mount Oglethorpe as the official southern terminus. He was the first to hike in both directions. In 1998, he hiked northbound at age 79, at the time the oldest person to do so. He succumbed to cancer on May 5, 2002, but remains an inspiration to many. Atlanta is the nearest major airport to Springer Mountain, but Delta Flight 261 was Miami-bound. An hour south of the city lies Homestead, where I'd worked on an organic farm 10 years before. I'd kept in touch with the owner, Gabrielle, who'd agreed to act as base HQ, somewhere to leave gear and supplies for mailing out should I need them. For example, cooler temperatures in spring require a warmer sleeping bag until the weather turns, necessitating a cooler bag. Food requirements vary for everyone. I shopped at stores en route, but other items I sourced in bulk because they were cheaper or hard to obtain. In my case, several kilos of my favourite chocolate protein powder. I mailed new gear from American companies to Gabrielle, which saved on postage costs as opposed to shipping them to England. A reliable HQ and someone willing to help are invaluable when through hiking. In the ensuing months, I appreciated what a great job she did. Many starred at Amicalola Falls State Park, hiking the 9-mile approach trail to the AT on Springer Mountain. From Homestead to Amicalola involved a 15-hour Greyhound trip to Atlanta, not a relishing prospect. To tie some loose ends there, such as last-minute gear supplies and transport to the trailhead, I emailed a distress call to some hiking friends. American hospitality is great. Hiker hospitality is amazing. But American hiker hospitality is legendary. Within 2 days of my plea, I had offers of everything I needed. Keith, Hiker X Batesel, and his girlfriend Sarah Semi Van Vliet lived and worked in Atlanta. Keith had the Pacific Crest Trail, PCT, under his boots and enjoyed helping hikers. I'd emailed Catherine Dinosaur Herndon, a hiker I'd met on the PCT, and she'd forwarded my message. Keith and Sarah let me stay for 2 days to get myself sorted. Lauren Swiss Miss Moran, who I'd also met on the PCT, volunteered as an excellent taxi service. Hiker X and Dinosaur are trail names. Few use their actual identity. You can name yourself, but usually it's offered by another hiker. It often refers to your appearance, mannerisms or behaviour, and if you're offered a trail name, you're supposed to accept it. This isn't always so. Mine, Fozzie, hailed from my surname. I arrived in Atlanta at 3:30 a.m, hungry and hoping to spot the neon lights of a roadside diner, but it wasn't to be. A few passengers stood outside the terminal sucking on cigarettes, and taxi fumes condensed, meeting the chill of late winter. A streetlight flickered, revealing 2 men lurking in the shadows, glancing in my direction. Early morning in downtown Atlanta isn't somewhere you should hang about, Keith warned me. Get a cab and come here. Don't screw around there, it can be dangerous. But the Greyhound arrives at 3:30. I can't knock then, I implored, not wanting to impose even further. It's fine, I'll hear you. I walked over as the cab window lowered. The driver turned to me. You need a ride? Yes, please. I checked the note on which I'd written Keith and Sarah's address and relayed it to him. We lurched forward and journeyed through empty streets as Atlanta contemplated waking. He slowed to read the house numbers in a dim light and pulled over. It's around here somewhere, he offered weakly. It was quieter away from the centre. I sat on their doorstep and lit a cigarette, trying to delay knocking to assuage my guilt. Bare trees silhouetted against a bright moon as a cat ran past, startling me. I tapped gently on the door, but no one answered. I knocked harder and heard footsteps as the hall light illuminated. Fozzie, come in. Look, sorry for waking you. I appreciate this. It's fine. Sarah's asleep. You want to rest? Yes, I could do with some shut-eye. Okay, the couch is comfortable if that's okay. Breakfast later? I'm a sucker for a good breakfast, and nowhere delivers it better than America. I'd mentioned this to him in an email. Please, he'd remembered. Oh, hell yeah, I answered, my eyes glinting greedily. I slept for 3 hours, waking to remember the final logistics. After a few minutes, the practicalities faded and my mind settled on one simple question. Why? It's the stock opening query from those who don't understand through hiking. The response from most through hikers, investing months of their time and several $1,000s, is enjoying hiking and the freedom the outdoors offers. Others may go into more depth, but we tire of replying because answers invite more questions. Many can't relate to spending weeks eating dehydrated food, getting filthy, being hot or cold and smelling like an overburdened trash bin way past its collection date. Despite this, we live for it. I spent years pondering this question until a definitive answer finally surfaced when I wrote this book. I love hiking and being outdoors. It's time out from a conventional lifestyle I struggle with. I revel in the solitude and the company and return refreshed, recharged and energised. It's a game changer. But dissecting my reasons in depth, I'd yearned for escape many years before my first through hike, a 1,000-mile walk on El Camino de Santiago in Spain. The appeal wasn't just the through hiking, that was purely the method to placate my wanderlust. Even in my teens, travel fascinated me. Initially, I assumed I was weird. My friends were concentrating on school, choosing colleges and careers, debating where to live, and later in their 20s, their thoughts turned to marriage and a family. I felt uncomfortable living conventionally, so I wanted out. I battled my wandering instincts for years. Why was I different? Why couldn't I find a decent job, get a house, buy shit at IKEA, upgrade to a better car than next door, marry and watch the wife pop out some kids? I finished my education, dropped out of an extra year at school and bounced around a series of jobs, none of which I enjoyed. I went into sales because I assumed success was working in an office job. In the 1980s, a silk paisley tie, a Prince of Wales check suit and an aluminium briefcase, even if it did only contain a round of sandwiches, suggested career success. Appearance was everything. I tried conforming to the lifestyle because I didn't know any different. In my mid-20s, during a tiresome stint as a financial advisor, I questioned my life route. I was miserable, exhausted and fighting nomadic desires derided by the mainstream. We shouldn't be travelling. Career focus was more important, or so I thought. Although adventuring was experiencing an upsurge, society frowned on it. I loved praise and recognition, like an obedient dog wagging its tail, and I thrived on winning people's approval. However, I realised that credit for performing meaningless tasks meant a wasted life. To travel without praise must be more rewarding than a career with it. Disillusioned with my jobs, society angered me. I lost interest with fitting in, and instead I rebelled. I started smoking, drinking and chasing women to distract myself from my nomadic urges. Unable to break from the system, my thoughts confused me. In retrospect, I wish I'd learned not to give a shit sooner. To feed my peripatetic desires while working, I joined recruitment agencies, content with one short placement until the contract finished, then I escaped. Short-term work didn't affect my CV, not that I cared, and it was acceptable to work many jobs without affecting future opportunities. I made my first tentative trip to Greece, where I hopped around the islands by boat, testing my resolve. Even there, the drifter in me demanded further gratification by continual movement. 2 days here, a brief layover there, move on, go somewhere new, anywhere. Keep moving, you must keep moving. For the first time I felt true peace in Greece. I loved roaming, stopped battling and accepted my wandering calling. I cared less about pleasing others, more about honouring myself. The fighting ended. I embraced my life. Dromomania, from the Latin dromus, runner, and mania, excessive desire, even insanity, is an uncontrollable impulse to wander, maintaining a blithe disregard for conformity. When I first heard the word, it struck a chord. In extreme cases, dromomaniacs have no memory of their travels, such as Jean-Albert Dada, a Frenchman from Bordeaux who walked until reaching far-flung cities such as Moscow. I don't care why I wander. I'm not one for understanding why things happen. I expect my car to start when I turn the key, and I care as much about the periodic table as why these letters appear as I type. I deal with being stationary because I must, but I'm happier when I indulge, and through hiking is my chosen method. My dromomania is mild. I don't wake in distant locations, but my roaming urge is strong. Through hiking appeals to me because my location constantly changes. Our wandering tendencies go back thousands of years to when we had little choice. Seasonal shifts drove us to the cooler mountains in the summer and to the plains in winter. We searched for more hospitable environments. If food became scarce, we moved where it was plentiful. In the Ice Age, we fled south to escape. During droughts, we left in search of water. I think the Cooks, Magellans and Columbuses were taking us for a ride. Being explorers, I proposed their travels were an excuse to indulge their dromomania. Mapping new worlds, they also satisfied their nomadic appetites and got paid for it. My friends have accepted my habits. Many admit being envious while others treat it with confusion, even derision. It's unfair I experience the world when they're staring at a computer screen for 8 hours a day. Such reactions puzzle me. I respect anyone's decision to work a 9-to-5 job. I do it myself sometimes. They're not my choices, but I understand them. Most accept the standard life charter, although an increasing number cast it aside. We're an intelligent species, but we work for most of the year with little vacation. We have dreams, a wish to be different, but we hesitate to follow them because of the risk. Okay, dreams can fail, but I'd urge you to try. If it feels right, confirmed by my goosebumps and heart flutters, often it works out fine. Persistence and hunger conquer any gaps in skill, knowledge and qualifications. If your aspiration is strong and you're prepared to chase it, your chances of success are high. Whether that's hiking a few thousand miles in the wilderness or forging a career as an artist, it makes no difference. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." There's another reason for my nomadism. During my second walk on El Camino de Santiago, I met a French hiker called Pierre who travelled with his dog, Flo. One evening I ate dinner with him whilst Patrick from Belgium translated for us, and the inevitable question of why we hike cropped up. Pierre walked often and preferred to camp or sleep rough due to limited funds, and also his dishevelled looks attracted unwanted attention. He shaved the sides of his head, and his scruffy appearance attracted the authorities, so he kept a low profile in town. They'd arrested him for sleeping in a park with his previous dog, which, wanted to protect him, barked at the police when they handcuffed Pierre. Much to his anguish, they shot his dog. Even now, a year later, his eyes welled as he spoke, and he pulled Flo closer. He expressed frustration in how we are governed, controlled, and how his appearance is a disadvantage. His words resonated with me. He followed a life he loved, a choice many frown on. Like me, he worked to earn money, and when he'd accrued enough, he hiked with his devoted dog, sometimes for months. He slept rough, discreetly. Once a week he stayed in a cheap hotel to clean himself. His hygiene suffered, as does a through hikers. He disliked rules, regulations, and he hated being told what to do. He didn't understand our many financial commitments, why they ignore our voices, and why the government doesn't consult us, despite many believing it does. He thinks we've lost our freedom, and he hikes to keep his. Patrick stopped the translation. This dishevelled, wiry Frenchman's thoughts had connected with us. Was I an anarchist, as Pierre claimed to be? Do adventurers undertake long trips to escape the system? I consulted the dictionary. Anarchy. Number 1. State of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority or other controlling systems. Number 2. Absence of government and absolute freedom of the individual regarded as a political ideal. I wouldn't want a state of disorder, but I'd relish absolute freedom. Perhaps there's a little of the anarchist in me. Perhaps there's a little of the anarchist in many of us. I understood and embraced my roaming desires. After Greece, I hiked my first long-distance trail, 1,000 miles on El Camino de Santiago in France and Spain. I connected further with hiking and the outdoors, but El Camino lacked the wilderness factor. I wanted remoteness, detachment, and backcountry, which appealed to my independent tendencies. I liked occasional company, but going solo fed the nomad. America boasted an enviable collection of wild trails, ticking those boxes. The 3 popular routes are the Appalachian Trail, 2,184 miles, the Pacific Crest Trail, 2,640 miles, and the Continental Divide Trail, 3,000 miles. The AT is an attractive first choice because it's the shortest. It passes through many towns for resupply opportunities, and first-time hikers like safety and numbers. It has around 250 shelters, simple wooden constructions, sleeping on average 8 people, conveniently placed near water sources. After the AT, many attempt the PCT and the CDT. Hike them all and earn yourself the accolade of a triple crowner. Each autumn, the Alder West, American Long Distance Hiking Association, honours those who've walked the 8,000-odd miles to complete all 3. As of October 2019, only 400 people have been successful. I discounted the AT because I thought I'd only have one chance to hike a long trail, and the other 2 appealed more. The AT is renowned for being wet. It clings to the Appalachian mountain chain, which receives more than its fair share of rainfall. Being English and familiar with dampness, though not comfortable with it, my attention turned to the other two. The CDT was a serious undertaking, and I wasn't ready. It's the longest, remotest, with fewer chances of resupply, and skillful navigation is a must. By elimination, the PCT was the obvious choice. It had a fantastic reputation, was geographically diverse, and it boasted the driest climate. I completed the PCT and, addicted to through hiking, 2 years later, I wanted the AT as well. Long-distance trails are life changers, but they're difficult. Many think through hikers enjoy extended holidays, eat sweet treats, sunbathe, drink alcohol, go wild swimming, smell terrible and muck around in the forest. Parts are true, but it's a huge physical and psychological effort. If you attempt a long-distance hike, the odds are stacked against you, and statistics show most will fail. Many quit in the first month. They underestimate their fitness. New gear chafes. Red raw blisters are excruciating, or it's cold, hot, dry or wet, often for days on end. Push through those first weeks and your chances increase. A single-minded fixation on your goal is needed. If you're mentally strong, can ignore the pain and pressure of another mile, view your hunger and thirst as imaginary and disregard the 15th straight day of rain, you might finish. The AT forges a path through 14 states: Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. A daunting prospect, but state lines indicate progress. On the PCT, you only crossed 4,282 prospective through hikers attempted the AT in 2018. Section hikers walk part of the trail along with day hikers or weekenders who often live close by. 3 million visit the AT each year. Virginia boasts the longest stretch at 550 miles, whereas the trail in West Virginia clips only 4 miles of the state corner. We consider Maryland and West Virginia the easiest sections. New Hampshire and Maine the hardest. By the time a through hiker reaches Mount Katahdin, they'll have climbed Mount Everest 16 times, consumed 900,000 calories, and drunk 20,000 fluid ounces of water. Most camp for more nights than they ever will again. Some wear out 1 pair of shoes, others 6. Many spend as little as $1,000, some $8,000 or more. A few are injured, and some, sadly, may even die. Most begin in Georgia and head north. They're the northbounders, or nobos. A small percentage start later in the season after the snows have subsided further north, hiking south from Maine. These are the southbounders, or sobos. Northbounding is by far the most popular thanks to a through hiker's eagerness to start earlier. An average hike takes 4 to 6 months, often covering all the seasons. Most nobos begin after winter around April and continue through spring and summer, finishing in autumn or perhaps winter. Sobo hikers start around June. Spring is the logical start time as the weather warms and makes a glorious season to begin. Instead of visiting the woods some weekends, or worse, not at all, we lived the seasons. Every day we shared the small changes. The trees turned from emaciated skeletons to bearers of tiny leaves. These multiplied, bursting from their buds and unfolding to catch the light, changing from a translucent pale green to an opaque depth. Gradually they succumbed to old age. Deep greens lost their sheen and faded to yellows, reds and browns, clinging to their twilight years in a final riotous flourish of an artist's palette. Finally they fell and fed the children of next season. I felt privileged to be outdoors. During the early stages of my hike, I often stopped at high points. The summits shivered in stark winter, but the lowlands blossomed with spring. However, by my immediate surroundings, the spirit below was abundant and unstoppable. As the Appalachians warmed, their energy crept uphill to meet me, and, in awe, each day I urged it ever upwards. I watched streams and rivers burst from the snowmelt, and as the summer marched on, raging torrents weakened to calmer waters. Creeks turned to mere trickles, ponds and lakes receded, emaciated weeds strewn over their crusty shores. I saw a damp, dark trail lighten to sandy beige as a warming sun stole the moisture. I observed snakes checking the temperature as they slithered through the undergrowth. I watched storms raging miles distant, gliding along the horizon, casting enormous shadows. Lightning forks cracked, followed by ominous rumbles. I felt the energy and sat, counting seconds between enraged flashes and angry claps. I beckoned the storm so I could experience the anger above. I walked in downpours, snow, the unbearable heat of summer and sapping humidity. I fled through the woods, outrunning storms, giggling like a child at the craziness of it. Sodden trails formed puddles, which overflowed as trickles tumbled over tree roots and matured to streams themselves, soaking my feet. I stood amongst the trees late at night, catching teasing glimpses of stars through the canopy. I strained my ears, hearing little but silence, waiting for the winds to climb the west side of the Appalachian Mountains and sense of the calm. Sometimes it merely stroked my face or ruffled my tent. At other times I struggled to hold myself against it. Its energy was invigorating, so intense it filled me. I sat on rock shelves, legs dangling over precipices. I enjoyed over 100 sunsets, and at dawn the sun peeked shyly over distant hills before finding me and warming my grateful skin. I rested around campfires with others who shared a love of the trail, and as we talked their faces flickered orange, bright one second, vanishing the next. They spoke of their lives and what the AT meant to them with moving honesty and authenticity. I walked with children, the retired, and many ages between. I befriended soldiers, conversed with teachers, laughed alongside builders, shared food with writers, drank in the company of artists, sang with 2 musicians, enjoyed views with truck drivers and camped alongside forest rangers. Drummer mania, I have it, and I'm grateful. If you're reading this, it's possible you do too. Don't fight it.